What's going on, y'all? This is Maurice.
And this is Katha.
And you are now listening to
the NoFruitPodcast.
And you can listen to us on
wherever you
listen to podcasts.
Exactly.
We thank y'all very much for tuning in with us today. And remember, Kath, what do you say to them for them to stay what?
To get fit. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yes, y'all. So today, we would like to speak to you about marriage. What did you say? How did you put it? Marriage ministries.
Marriage ministries.
Yes. I'm sorry, I had a brain fart for a second. So today we're going to speak about marriage ministries, and do you think that they are important or not? Does your church actually have one? Have you been to any? So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about today.
So Maurice and I were sitting and talking at dinner, and it just came across to me, and I said, we've never had a marriage ministry in one of the churches that we have attended.
Right.
And then I questioned, well, do we know of any marriage ministries that are in our area? Do we know of any local churches that offer marriage ministry? So often I hear about children's ministry. Children's churches doing this, and the children are doing that, and they're putting on this play, and they're going to the Great Adventure, and they're going on this trip, and they're doing all these great things. And it's wonderful that churches are investing in our children.
Right.
But I think also they should invest in marriages. With that, I also have gone to churches that have had seasoned saints ministries or senior ministries, and it gathers the older, saints together, and they talk about things that they have going on in their lives, and different speakers come out and talk about different benefits that they should be aware of. I've even been a guest speaker at one of these seasoned saints events. Well, I talk to them about arthritis and what it is and what they can do to deal with the pain of arthritis.
Right.
And I've done that at several churches that have had groups for the seasoned saints.
Right.
They also have, I hear on the radio and so many other things about singles ministries for those who are single and they're seeking or, patiently waiting, whatever it is. I hear a lot about that, but I really haven't heard much about marriage ministry. So Maurice, what about you? What have you experienced and heard?
For myself, I have heard the term marriage ministry.
Yes.
I just can't tell you who had it offhand, where to go, because it's not something that I hear frequently.
Correct.
So, to answer that question, I couldn't tell you. I'm like you. I mean, and we even joked about having a parking lot ministry, but no marriage ministry. So you have all these other ministries. You have ministries about advertising and marketing to the First Ladies Ministry. Like, you have all these other organizations
or auxiliaries. My mom was a part of the Flower Club, and
Hostess
she had
Club.
The Hostess Club. She had to put fresh flowers up on the, in the church every week.
I mean, for those of us that went to some other churches, we had the South Carolina Club or we had the Triple V, and there's so many different clubs out there that's in the church, but that is not one
that you hear a lot about.
No, not at all.
And I find it ironic or strange in a bit that the church lets us know how important marriage is.
Right.
And I can remember even us as young people going to conferences and them talking about the family and that, marriage is very, very important part of it. Of a family unit.
Right.
And they went into the structure of a family unit and how marriage is a part of that. But just again, it didn't say, okay, from this point, marriage ministry will develop and we want you to go out and, start a marriage ministry in your local church. It didn't go there at all. They got together and said, hey, those who are between the ages of 25 and 40 need to do something and get together, but it wasn't marked as a marriage ministry. So I guess my question a little bit is to our listeners, like, is that something that's important? Do you feel as though that marriage ministry is important, that it's needed, especially today, in today's society when so many people are getting married and then getting divorced?
Right.
So many marriages are ending in divorce, or marriage just means different things to different people as well. You know, as you do some research and you hear about what's going on in the world, some people are married. I mean, there's reality TV shows about people who are married to sister wives, you know, that they have, you know, multiple wives. There's people who are doing so much. And I think, you know, what the culture is doing and showing of marriage kind of is like not godly. You know, there's marriage boot camp on, you know, TV.
I mean, I think it's like, for an example, like, you know, when you talk about like marriage boot camp, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it's shown as not godly. I think that some of the shows, they strive on controversy. They strive on conflict. So marriage boot camp, just for an example, I think is just the conflict that you have in marriages. Mm-hmm. And, you know, even when you know, one of the shows that we watch is, you know, Married at First Sight. Mm-hmm. You know, and even with that, you know, again, they're talking about marriage, but they're focused on the struggle of having this marriage and trying to maintain it and keep it. So I think there's a lot of things that they, as far as what was shown to us, is just the struggle and not the enjoyment of marriage.
I mean, but what I'm getting at is God is not the center of those marriages.
And even with that, it's hard to, for those of us that understand media, you know, we understand that some of that is not going to sell. Mm-hmm. Right?
I mean, but you can have maybe one couple that is thinking of that and focused on that, and not saying that it has to be that way with every couple that's on the show.
I mean, I think when you look at the who was that guy, that couple that had like 20 whatever kid, I can't remember the name of the show, and they lived on a farm and whatever else. And even though they were heavily focused on religion, but because they have fallen short often, and that, I mean, between the husband and then the kids, like it was just crazy. You know, they eventually had to take the show off the air, I believe, because of that. That wholesome vibe was no longer wholesome anymore. Mm-hmm. So what image is being put out there? If you pay attention, I don't think there's a whole lot of shows out there that even support a real religious perspective.
Right.
I'm not saying it has to be Christian, you know, but is, you know, some type of Islamic faith. Unfortunately, with that in this country, we look at them as terrorists, and they're not. So I think that kind of pulls back on that a little bit. For those that are from the Jewish faith, I believe that, you know, there's a not always a positive outlook on them either. So the only way what you would do would be, hey, you know, from a Christian perspective, and that's not to minimize any other religions or faiths or practices that's out there, but from a Christian perspective, even though there might be an underlining message out there, I think that's one that they don't want to put out there too much. So, so as a whole, I don't think we're really going to see a wholesome family perspective from a, you know, with a focus on their religious faith.
I mean, that's all well and fine. That's television, and I'm not saying that that's where we should go to get advice on our marriage and grow at all.
But again, I'm not saying that either.
You know, from the church perspective, for all of our church leaders, you know, all of you who are listening, again, what is it that you can do to help those that are about to get married, or those who are newly married, or those who are like Maurice and myself, who have been married for 20 years, and then those who have been in it for 40 years or 50 years. I was just looking recently, I think somebody was celebrating 70 plus years of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Right.
But, they also need to be uplifted, and they may have some information they can share with someone else that's a newlywed, or someone like us that's been married for 20 years. So I just want to know, like, what do you think are some of the important things of having a marriage ministry in the church, and why do you think that so many churches don't offer it?
I think that there is a more than likely a lack of married couples in the church.
I would agree, yes.
One, number two, I think even though people may be married, but I could think of quite a few persons who are married. The spouses actually attend different churches. And I will also say that those that are normally married are the pastor and first lady, or the pastor and the first man, and in that, or pastor and pastor. So with that being said, a lot of times their duties are already thin,
right?
In my opinion. So,
and their call, is different than
right.
leading perhaps that type of ministry, depending on the size of the church. I understand, but again, why do you think, other than the fact that there's not a lot of couples in the church? For me, I would agree that there's not a lot of couples in the church, and that could make it difficult to start a ministry. If you don't have any children in your church, then it's kind of hard to start a children's ministry.
Right.
But sometimes, as your mother used to say, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, right.
So if you build a children's church and a children's choir and a Sunday school, or, whatever it is, and you don't have any children, but you put it out there that, hey, we have this available.
Right.
And you have your teachers, and you're all ready and prepared. So when the children do come, or when you're able to go out there and get them, and you do bring them in, that they have something that they're coming into. So, I can't say that there's no one in church that's married.
And
so again, the husband and the wife may not be there at the same time, or like you said, they may be fellowship in different places. But if I fellowshipped at A church and you fellowshipped at B church, and I came home and said, babe, my church is having a couples ministry night, I would love for you to attend with me. Unless it's going against something that you were doing at your church, I can't say that you wouldn't attend that with me.
Again, like you said, for me, yes, I would attend, right? But I think there's something that you mentioned that's very important. If people are worshiping in different places, a lot of times people have their own organizations, services, clubs, so forth and so on that they're attending to. And for guys, and I'm only going to speak from my guy perspective, a lot of times we're going to be put in roles that are going to be from the deacon/steward perspective or the trustee perspective. Maybe a male chorus. After that, is really nothing else left for us to do. So we're kind of just sitting out there.
So all the more reason for you guys to go ahead and head up the ministry for marriage.
But I think with that comes, where we are consumed, or we get consumed with other things that's kind of going on. So yes, our wife is at this meeting, so all right, we can get all these other things done, besides chilling, relaxing from work or whatever else that might be. I know for myself, between helping out with the kids, really being a decent role model for my son and my daughter, sometimes you get caught up in other stuff and you're not, whatever they have going on, because you don't necessarily have anything planned, you kind of end up being a taxi for them. So I think there's some other roles that men play that may not allow for them to head up a club or organization such as that, unless it's commissioned by the pastor.
Mm-hmm. So pastors out there, please commission your men and maybe some of your women to go ahead and start that the couples ministry, the marriage ministry. I was just looking around at like some ideas and things that people could do, and I think a lot of them we do already in church, but if you have the focus that this trip that we're sponsoring is being sponsored by the couples ministry, the marriage ministry, then, only married people will go. I think one of the churches we did attend, a friend was having a couples marriage ministry weekend around Valentine's Day up in the Poconos. So that was something that was just focused on you being married, and around that time they, went away for, I think, a night or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was just for married people, but it was a ministry, and that's what they did, just getting out and doing things with other married people.
Yeah, so I think as we're talking about the marriage piece, I think that married couples, overall, they kind of get together anyway. Mm-hmm. But I believe that a marriage ministry can really help in the spiritual growth of the marriage. I think that's truly needed. Mm-hmm. I do believe that the marriage ministry can help with, like you said, those that are just starting out in marriage. Hey, how do we handle these differences? How do we handle the thought of us being unequally yoked? How do we handle all these other outside pressures of this commercial, this girl is looking nice or whatever else. I want my wife to look like that, but my wife can't, she's pregnant, or she can't lose the baby weight, or whatever else. You get what I mean? And then, and on the other side, I like that guy. He's really, really buff. My husband used to look like that, but now he's getting a little, little pudgy, So sometimes you need that support system around you.
Right. And I think,
which is what I'm sorry, real quick, which is what I was kind of alluding to earlier, because everything that you see on TV are the model-esque type people and not really the homey type people. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So what I was going to get at is I think a lot of it is started, like we went to premarital counseling, for several sessions before getting married. And I think a lot of pastors will offer similar services. Like I'm not, some have even said I'm not going to perform the marriage ceremony unless I meet with you several times.
Right.
But it stops after you say I do, or say I will, or, jump the broom. However, you become married, it stops after that, and I think it should continue. And how does it continue? As you said, some of those questions and things that you raised, Maurice, were things that we talk about in premarital counseling, but those are just the wishful things. Like, who's going to take out the trash, and how are you going to handle the finances, and how are you going to handle this? But then it becomes real after you get married. Like, now we really do have to live together and work all this stuff out. And how do you do that?
I mean, and I think what else happens in marriage, not only does it become real from just a marriage perspective, but then you're learning yourself, you're learning the other person, you're learning how to work together, and then you have all the other pressures that come with marriage that sometimes in the very beginning can wear you out to some degree, because not only are you learning the other person, but you got to learn their family.
Right.
You technically have to learn your family all over again, because now they're trying to adjust with you being married, and the one thing we have yet to talk about is by the time the spouse becomes pregnant and you start involving kids, your whole life turns different.
Right. And that's, parenting ministry. But, again, just being married and what marriage brings upon, and like you said, those responsibilities, the compromise of now having to deal with someone else. So, a mom calls and says, can you come over here and change the light bulb? You can't just jump up and go do it because mom called. You have someone else that you're connected to, that, that you're now become one with, that sometimes you just got to talk to a little bit and communicate with to let them know, hey, mom called and need a light bulb, those things. So,
and I think sometimes stuff like that is hard to break out of those type of habits, especially if you've come up in a single parent home. Sometimes I think that kind of wears on you a little bit too.
Right. And, I'm not saying that you have to give it all up. But again, these are some things I think that through a marriage ministry, through group counseling, through just talking to other people, you would kind of, realize, hey, it's not just me. Or you'd hear some ideas on how others have dealt with it and come off a little bit better. I mean, I think, Maurice, when you and I first got married, we had impromptu, I guess, in our own house, in our own living room, marriage and couples ministry. Some of us were married. Well, most of us were married at that time.
Right.
We kind of started this domino effect of everybody getting married.
Yeah, right. Right.
So with that, we would sit around and talk about what it was like to be young, married, in the ministry, starting a family, all those things. And it was very helpful.
But I would also say that we were already, all of us that were together, we had already had a group relationship anyway. Us being friends, singing on choirs together, whatever it might have been like. So we already had a bond. But I do believe as our children were getting older, and I do believe jobs changing, things like that, I think some of that really changed our dynamic as we move forward, i.e. why we don't have it now. And then you kind of get used to not being in that place. Because everyone from that initial group, except for you and I, are pastors. Everyone. Every single one. So, even though some people will say that we're pastors in our own right, and that we are, quietly bishops, whatever they might call us. But I believe everyone had gotten so caught up in their ministry and their work at church and schooling and things like that. So as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I mean, I'm kind of glad I was able to work this part in, because I think this is where marriage ministry marriage ministries in churches, I think this is probably why they falter a little bit, because you might have a couple that's starting out and coming frequently, but then as life starts to change, unfortunately, the participation starts to change. And then come to find out, you don't have as many people there as you once did, and then all of a sudden it dies out. I think that because for myself, any church that's under, this is only my opinion, y'all, you could say it how, your own experiences, but my own experiences and people that I've talked to, the only churches that have a thriving or appearance of a thriving marriage ministry are those churches that have over 500 members. And so with that being said, those 500 members, I mean, you can see that because of, hey, everyone, in those little larger congregations have the professionals where they only work 9 to 5, so they could come out at 6, 7 o'clock. or they have something where they could do something else with the kids and may not have to worry about, oh, we got to do this with the kids or that with the kids or whatever. Or, you have an older middle age where my kids just left out the house, population. So those that are a little smaller congregations, I don't hear too many of them having this marriage I keep wanting to say counseling because to some degree it's counseling, but just this marriage support group, this marriage ministry, marriage counseling or ongoing marriage counseling, however you want to word it. I think that's part of the difference. Is it kind of comes down to your congregation and the types of persons that you have in them. So whether it's white collar, blue collar, self-employment, disability, I think it comes down to a lot of those different things too. So I don't want to say that marriage ministry is not important. I just don't think that those that are in marriage have the time versus those that are single, because I think with single ministries, it allows those persons to kind of go out and be out with people that they could kind of they can still kind of let their hair down, but they don't feel all the worldly pressures of drinking alcohol, having sex, things like that.
And I think that's the issue. I think, again, with children's ministry and singles ministry, it's like we're doing all these things to fill your time, to help you so you don't sin and you don't have issues. But again, married people have issues too. Married people are tempted as well. So I think there is still a strong need for marriage ministry in the church. I think just because we're married, I want to sit and look at a movie with you. But again, it's sometimes good to go and look at a movie with some friends. Or, I don't mind sitting having dinner with you, but it's also good to go out and have dinner with friends. And a marriage ministry would be a way to go. Again, like you said, there's so many other things that the church offers ministry-wise, whether it's the usher board or the Sunday school or the church choir or trustee and stewardess, all of those different organizations and ministries do occupy a lot of the time. But I think the marriage ministry is still very important, and I think it can be worked in with some of those other auxiliaries and some of those other ministries. So again, I don't want it to be overlooked. I think it's needed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think, I'm not discounting that it's not needed. I just think that we just need people to kind of head it up. I think that's what it comes down to.
And there's no excuses. Again, as I said earlier, that a lot of things that marriage ministries can do as programs or outings, you're kind of already doing, but just now focus it on those who are couples, either about to get married, already married, those types of things. I think if you do do you have a Bible study just for married people? I know when I was in Bible school, we read, oh goodness, now I just lost my train of thought. We read the book where the gentleman is speaking about his wife, and they had a couple read it to one another. It was just very, it's a poet, one of the poetry books. Okay. So, it was very poetic. I think Maurice and I, we started to read it. I don't think we got through it. So, do you start there? You can start somewhere. Do you have, we have Women's Day, we have Men's Day. Do you have a marriage day? We have men's breakfast and women's breakfast to have speakers talk about what it's like to be a woman in the Bible. And we have, Women of the Bible conferences and, different things about men of the Bible. But do we talk about marriages? And marriages is there in the Bible.
Yeah.
We always joke around and say, hey, Jesus made his first miracle at a wedding. So somebody was getting married. So I just think it's important to bring up how marriage and understanding that it is a ministry, that it is of God, and God blessed marriage. And I think that if we as a church would discuss it and talk about it more, then we could certainly
I would say probably have more healthy marriages.
I'm going to say, have more healthy marriages.
Which ultimately creates more healthy kids.
Mm-hmm.
And a more positive outlook because of our community is suffering.
Yes.
Overall.
Right.
And even when you have a husband and wife, sometimes it still seems like there's a lack of respect sometimes on both parties, from both parties. And again, as you said earlier about just watching TV and things like that, we get kind of consumed with that. And sometimes the male looks like a little weaker than the female. So we just kind of, there's a sense, and I'm not against, black girl power or anything like that. It's just that, I'm not sure how to move forward with some of that. And why are we, not empowering our own people.
Right.
Overall.
So overall, we hope that you all got something out of this. And let us know if you have a marriage ministry. Maybe we'll come and check you out.
Right.
If you're thinking about starting one, let us know. We can certainly come and we would love to come out and be a part of it.
Right.
And kind of hear what's going on. And then certainly check us, out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Let us know what's going on. Are you having a marriage ministry? Have you heard of any churches in the area that have one?
Right.
Post up and let us know so the others in our community can certainly see what God is doing.
Right.
So God bless you all, and thanks for listening.
Tune in next week, and maybe we'll have something a little special coming up for y'all. Maybe we'll turn this old marriage thing into a series. I don't know. I'm thinking about it now that we're talking about it.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts.
Right. All right, y'all.
God bless you.
Thank y'all very much. And we will see y'all next week. Peace.